All right, everybody, welcome to the Lehnin problem from the IKS. This is being run by Umpire LaFondiose, and it is a convention-style Kriegsspiel, meaning it is designed for rapid, brief play, taking perhaps 2 to 3 hours in duration, which
Jens,
is
just checking to
perfect
make sure
for
you can
a
see
convention.
questions up front.
Hey, Paul, nothing yet. I'm just getting into it. I am recording this, not
Okay.
broadcasting, but I'm recording, and I'll upload
Yeah.
it to YouTube later. The idea is to record content and to capture my wrong thoughts as we go through the game. So everybody gets to see how could this guy be so wrong.
Well, excellent. I will try to appear twice as intelligent in this channel as I do in the others. Sounds good. All right,
Awesome.
I'll be back to answer questions shortly. All right.
You got it. All right, Titan, you there, man?
Yes, I am.
I put up a module in Tabletop Simulator. Do you have TTS?
Yeah. What's the name? What's the password?
Kriegsspiel, and the password is IKS, all lowercase letters.
Wonderful.
All right. And so people know, here is the briefing. Your parent corps has been given the mission to relieve a besieged Magdeburg. You command the 3rd Division, which is bivouacked near Glendow. You are ordered to march to Magdeburg as rapidly as possible to relieve pressure on the defenders. You have put the 2,000 Fusiliers, 1,000 of your infantry, 300 hussars, and a battery of 6 guns into an advance guard. The main body of your division is organized into 2 brigades of roughly equal strength with the remaining cavalry and artillery. You send the advance guard ahead towards Brandenburg, directly to your west. Upon reaching that town, it discovers an enemy in regimental strength is already there, and in a strong position behind a tributary river. The advance guard's commander uses his discretion and withdraws back towards Potsdam, reporting to you and asking for further orders. Your division has at its disposal 12,000 regular infantry, 2,000 light infantry, which are fusiliers, 1,250 hussar cavalry, and 24 guns. You surmise that the enemy regiment is the advance guard for an enemy division located somewhere to the south of Brandenburg. What operations will you undertake to relieve the besieged forces at Magdeburg? All right, so we have that. Now let's take a look at our module. And I'm going to promote you Titans that you can also interact with the module, including draw on the map as needed. I'm going to pull up a pin and choose a blue color.
I'm using green.
Okay,
So
perfect. I'm going to make it a little transparent so that if need be, we can see through. All right, testing that works. All right, I'm good to plan.
how do you make it transparent?
So when you choose the color, and it brings up the color palette, you see it on the far
I
right
found it.
there. Yep.
I found it. Ooh.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've got a couple units here, and then we have the bad guys. Let's draw where the bad guys are. The bad guys are there.
Yes. Well, okay, so we already know objective, fairly easy. We need to get off the map here. Technically, I think maybe we could try to force our way on the road west of Brandenburg, but with the Havel being where it is, I don't think we can really try to make any moves north of this river without just getting stuck,
Right.
which seems to be contrary to our objective of a quick action. So we have to somehow make it roughly over here.
So there's an enemy division somewhere south
All right.
here.
It's all the players are here, and everybody's married up. So it's now 10:11. Let's go ahead for another 10 minutes. Go through the planning second. You guys splitting that up. So 10:20 or 7:20 on the West Coast is our next milestone. Any questions so far?
Negative.
Not really. The different hills, they have a hilltop marker, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that just shows the spine of the hill, then the slope around the hill. So you can position a unit on that entire slope area, and that would give you an advantage in terms of height.
Yep.
But good feedback. Good stuff. I love it. All right, guys, I will be back shortly to see if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, from the map, it looks like the only option we have is to force our way across. But that's not true. We do have a route that goes to the south here. And
Correct.
the problem is there's an enemy division somewhere south of here. There's an enemy division, and we don't know which road it's on. I don't
Yeah,
know if
and
south means it's here or here.
even
But
more problematic is this road they have here means they can rapidly redeploy alongside our route of advance, so we
right,
can't really, even if we manage to isolate them or partially isolate one of their like brigades, maybe we would still be faced with the other marching to its aid fairly soon, as long as they utilize this axis.
but still, it might do us well to demonstrate here to fix this unit in position while flanking to the south and then making the main effort up this way. What I
Well,
don't like
I
about it
was
is that it's the
thinking,
longer. Go ahead.
yeah, if we make it to Golzov, we could technically just push straight across this field. It's going off-road isn't ideal in this case, but
Hmm.
it could be a viable option if we leave a blocking force to cover our flank while we press on towards Magdeburg.
Right. We're still
But
going to
that
have something up.
necessitates, of course.
Yeah, we're still going to have something here
Yeah,
to
so the
keep them
first
distracted.
yeah, so the first real problem is the terrain here. The terrain is frankly horrific. There is 500,000 hills and most of them are covered in forests, and then there's this great big line of, well, tributary which runs down here, and I mean there's the fordable position here. I think it's supposed to be fordable.
Hmm.
Obviously there's the bridge in Lehnin.
Hmm.
We could try to outflank it to the south as well, but somehow we're gonna have to get over or around this river. Or we could just try to go in right where the enemy is, but we know that there's a dug-in enemy here, so that's also not particularly easy.
Yeah, one of the concerns I have with going off road is when you go off road, it's kind of hard to move artillery and baggage train,
Supplies,
all that. I
yes.
don't know. That's a question we should ask Paul if going off, what the
Yes.
penalty is for going off road, or if we even can. I'm a big fan
We
of just
should
sticking to the road network.
ask we should also ask how useful it would be if we had south from Golzov.
Sure.
Because it's something, but whether or not it's actually useful it's like still remains.
Okay. So are we agreed that we send a blocking force here,
Yes,
and then
probably
we're going to go
some
here,
in the advance.
and either this way or this way
Well,
is the plan? What's your
the
opinion of that?
question is,
Hmm.
if we decide to strike with most of our force through Lenin,
Hmm.
I think at that point we will face, because this whole string of hills and forests means that any movement here will be very uninformed. So they'll be practically blind, even with cavalry scouts. And it's also just going to be slow. So
Here's another possibility. Main force here, but holding around here out of sight. A significant but capable but small force moves this way, making the enemy
tries
believe
to
that our
draw
main
the
effort is
enemy off.
standing. Yes, draw the enemy
Yes.
south, and then we're able to push across through here, especially if we have good artillery, push through there, and then we're on. I kind of like this plan myself. So
Yeah,
we feint to the
I
south.
do agree. I think the south is just not suitable to the kind of advance we're trying to make. But it again, it depends on how valuable Golzov is, which let's hope Paul comes back. Oh, Paul is just sitting in lobby. Should we maybe ask him to come back?
We just don't have a lot of time here to decide. We also need to decide how we're going to divide the
Yeah,
forces.
I'm
So I'm of the opinion that we send a small advance guard here. The main force can hold back here out of sight, and then the diversionary force comes south. The diversionary force has to look and act like it's a bigger force than it really is. Um, and it's going
Do
to
we
have to,
actually know? Do we know the scale of this map?
yeah, the scale
Is
is
yeah, oh yeah,
one
there it is.
kilometer down there. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one grid is 1 kilometer. So let's say our main force were to march. This would be 4 hours of. Yeah, it would take them 8 hours just to march from up to Golzov. First up, going off-road west from Golzov. How bad would that be for our artillery and
There are,
baggage?
yeah, good question. Clarifying point. There are small roads and lanes in that area, so that's actually all cultivated land. So you can travel across that. It just slows you down. So that would be rather than 2.5 kilometers per hour, which would be on the main highway road or the main roads, it would slow you down to maybe
1.5.
one and a half to two. Okay? So that is travelable in there.
Okay, yeah. Next question, the river. Is it fordable on all smallish places or only at the bridges?
Only at the bridges. Good question.
Okay.
All right. How do we want
Mm,
to? We got to call the play, boss. We got to go. Do we want the
yeah.
diversion south, or do you want the main body south? I personally, I would do diversion to the south with the advanced guard up near Brandenburg with the main body behind it, and then when the enemy's drawn off, the main body pushes through. In fact, we have to calculate the time, like about the time we think you'll get to Golzo or so, is when the main body needs to go ahead and begin the push through those defenses.
Well, I mean, here's the problem. Here's what I'm thinking. Our cavalry, like they can get, like, our cavalry can do some stuff, but the problem is this crossing is far too defensible for us to easily make it across because
No,
these
you have
hills.
to bombard the crap out of it with artillery.
Yeah, this crossing is actually a bit more attainable, especially because we can take the route south of this small body
Well,
of water.
we don't
So I think,
remember the enemy has a say in our plans. The enemy could be
yeah,
doing this. They could have a
but
force of their own coming up that direction.
yeah, I expect they will have a force, at least a brigade, maybe more, up in that direction,
Okay.
which we just have to have more there. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the
Okay,
direct approach in this case, but that's me.
okay, yeah. Let's go with the direct approach. We have to divide up our forces. We've got 4 artillery batteries total. I assume we'll be needing all 4 in the north.
Yeah, 4 in the north, okay. And then
Yeah.
we'll send a heavier cavalry force to the south.
So make that an entire regiment,
Yeah,
4 saddles.
take all that.
Then we can send the remaining 2 to bring the advance guard up to regimental strength and cavalry as well.
Okay.
And then I'd send perhaps 1 infantry regiment. Do you think that's enough to?
If even, it would be I would send minimum infantry south.
Yeah.
Whatever you think you
I,
might need
I
to
I
defend
think
in
I
an
think we will
emergency.
need to send one infantry regiment to
Okay.
make it look like a concerted effort,
And
and
then the
then
rest will go north to
we would
here.
still have 80% of our forces and all of our artillery in the north, which should be sufficient. Okay, division of force. Should I just take the southern detachment and be a nuisance, or
Sure,
because I
yeah.
assume we should? Yeah, because in that case I would definitely, uh,
And I'll
yeah,
keep you
be
updated
with
by
them.
dispatch and vice versa.
Yeah,
But
you have this nice road, so you can get some decently fast
how long do you
dispatches to
think
me.
it's going to take you to get from here to, let's say, here or here or here?
Lenin will take me at least 4 hours. The cavalry probably less, and then it's another 4 hours if I make it all the way to Golzov. But I assume I'll be bogged down in this area before that, so
Okay.
I at least hope to make it to Lenin, and then I'll probably try to circumvent this to make it look like to just draw them even further south and away from the road
Yeah.
in order
Okay.
to block me. Because if everybody just gets lost in the woods, that's better for us.
hmm Yeah, I wouldn't invest too heavily. Uh, I just found that every time you try to get fancy, it usually doesn't pay
It
off.
doesn't end up working.
Yeah. But if we can draw off more of the enemy, like you said, that's worth the investment. But otherwise, yeah, I think I just have to time the attack on the crossing or the appearance of the main body with you drawing off the enemy. So I think I'll wait at
Yes.
least 8 hours or so, and then
No, don't wait quite that long. I'd say wait. You need at least 4 hours to make it into position
correct,
anyway.
correct,
Probably a bit more.
yeah.
So what
But
it boils down to is,
we need time for you to draw them off.
yeah,
'Cause,
okay,
yeah,
you will be marching up for approximately 5 hours anyway. Then you'll be in this location roughly, and then you need another 2 hours to make it to the crossing from this location in the back.
which should put you around Lennon, right, or further.
Yeah, so I would, yeah, something like along the lines of 7 to 8 hours actually before you start your attack. And in that time, because we also need to factor in that they will need time to get dispatches down and sent and such. Okay, I think we have it.
Okay.
I'll type it out for LaFondiose quickly for Paul.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got the 13th Infantry Regiment and a full regiment of cavalry. You'll just absorb the advanced guard when you make it to it, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, this doesn't have a name or okay.
It's the advanced guard.
Yeah.
These two are technically down here right now, but it's cavalry, so they should be able to make the transfer.
Just want to check in and talk me through your plan.
Okay, should one of us stream? I'm gonna stream
Go
the
go
table
go,
section
go ahead
video.
and type if you want. I can also stream because you're typing.
I've already I've already streamed, so I'll just talk, not type. Okay,
Okay.
plan. I can hear myself double. I don't
Okay.
know why. It should be
Oh,
fine now. I could just hear myself double, but no, it's fine. So our plan boils down to having this powerful, mobile, but not exactly significant in terms of our entire force, diversionary force, move rapidly up to Lehnin and into this heavy, like heavily hilly and forested area that's presumably going to be defended by the enemy south of Magdeburg. No, Brandenburg, trying to draw off the enemy's attention and convince them that there is actually a far larger force in these woods in
okay. What
order for
regiment
them
is that?
to the 13th. And this will then hopefully result in them weakening their defense along the northern bridge, which will be the crossing point for our main force. As soon as it has marched up along this main road and while absorbing the advance guard, and they will then give 2 hours of a time window for my force to essentially cause havoc and make as much of a nuisance of itself as it can before they themselves start their main attack, hopefully as the enemy is shifting forces.
So you'll be
That's
with Titan. You'll be with the small force, and Marshall will be with the main body.
correct.
Correct.
I've also put it in the War Council channel in very small typing.
Okay. Great. I will be back shortly with the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good luck and send me letters.
Yes, I will remember to write to you, sir.
I'll
Don't
do the
forget
same.
to write. You
Yes.
don't call, you don't write, you just come around when you want money, or in this case, reinforcements.
Well, if I have to call for reinforcements, something has gone wrong.
Yeah, no, I know.
I mean,
Well,
I'll
that's
probably
you have the infantry,
actually
so
that's a decent. I need to figure out roughly. I might even leave one infantry battalion just in Lenin
yeah.
to make
Er,
sure that I've got the bridge covered and it can't be taken from me by something flanking me from maybe the north.
Yeah, if they try to get really cute, I don't think that will work for them, but who knows? People do weird things.
Yeah.
So,
It's just okay. Well, actually, like the marching speed in the forests is horrific, so it would take them an entire hour to cover this much of a distance, which
yeah,
they would need a hell of a long time to go anywhere. Like this would
yeah.
take them 10 hours, which yikes.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it'll work out pretty well. The trick is for me
Yeah,
to show the main force and make the big attack late enough that the they've drawn off. Hopefully, I'll see some signs of weakening. That would be an obvious clue. Of course, we don't want to attack the instant they weaken the line. We want to give them time for those
of course,
reinforcements
yes.
to make their way south.
The good
Ultimately, you'll probably have
the
to
good
fall
thing
back.
about all of this is
Hmm.
hmm the good thing about all of this is called the Lenin problem. So there's a certain emphasis on Lenin, which just
Hmm.
psychologically speaking might draw off the enemy's attention. They might also get a go reverse psychology on us as we are trying to do on them, but I mean that's just warfare.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, they probably have been told they have to defend Brandenburg, and they know that they have that good, strong position there, but they're afraid of that position getting flanked. So they're going to send something to the south to Golzo or Lenin to defend it against that flank. I would imagine they're going to keep the main force at Brandenburg, but if they hear that our main force is coming through Lehnin or Golzo, because you have that infantry and that cavalry, if they see that, they're certainly going to send reinforcements, and then that should weaken things. And hopefully, again, much of it's going to come down to the artillery. The artillery is our center of gravity up there in the north. They're the ones that have got to push through so that we can assault that crossing. So, all right. All right, it looks like Titan just popped out for some reason. He may have dropped connection or something. But we'll see. Go ahead and erase all of the lines. And we're going to wait for Paul to come back and kind of tell us where everything is, more or less. I think Paul may have moved him out to a private channel. All right, so I believe the advance guard is here, more or less. I do want to take a look at our guide. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and draw things out. Trying to. All right. And these are Fusiliers. These are light infantry here, just so you know. They're literally lighter color than their compatriots. All right. So enemy contact took place here. We believe they have defenses here. This seems to be a logical place for their reserve to be stationed. Back here behind the hill between Brandenburg and the crossing and at this crossroads. So this is where we expect them to basically have a reserve, and they're going to want to deploy out of this as needed.
All right, Marshall. You see there in your blue player 1 channel, you see the 2 arrows. The small arrow shows after 2 hours the progress of the smaller detachment under the commander of your colleague Titan is moved down that road. You still have contact with them, so that's how you know that they're there. The large arrow shows the front trace of the main body that you're in command with, and you're in as a part of that group moving west along that road. Time now is 0800. I'll put that in your channel for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Be back shortly to get your orders.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and position the main body of our forces. I don't know exactly what the order of march is, but we do not expect contact with the enemy, so that precision is not necessarily required at this moment. We do want to put artillery up front because we're going to be calling upon it. Anytime you expect contact with the enemy, it's a good idea to have guns up front. And I don't know if these cavalry have made it back yet, but we will check on that. do want them out here. And again, just so you, the viewer, understands, this is where we're going to hold. We do not wish to be in sight of the enemy. We want to keep the main body out of sight and then allow our good friend Titan to work his magic in the south. His operation is absolutely critical. If the enemy does not believe that we are feinting or moving south in force, feint wouldn't be the right word. We don't want them to think we're feinting. If the enemy does not believe that we're actually headed south for the indirect approach, then they won't send enough forces from their reserve to the south. And I'll end up fighting the main enemy force. The problem with all military planning is that the enemy gets a say. You can have your plans, but the enemy also gets a say in how your plans actually turn out. If the enemy decides they want to send a main force, a large force, to Golzo, Lehnin, Gulsdorf, and come around from behind or something like that, or outflank us and, whatever their objectives may be, well, we could be in a bit of trouble. So while we do want them to send a big force to the south, I don't.
What are yours?
Go ahead. I want my main body to draw up somewhere, probably around those two lakes north of those mountains. Basically, they're to stop entirely out of sight of the crossing. So I don't want them to go too close to that crossing. They're supposed to remain hidden, even if it means they've got another hour or so to march to get up to the crossing. But otherwise, they're to
The
go out there.
crossing at the crossing just east of Brandenburg, you want to stay in the hills, basically to the east of that.
The
Or do you
main
want to move
body,
up?
yes. But
Correct. Yeah.
the advanced guard,
Right.
however, is to continue to demonstrate and, in fact, have the artillery start taking pot shots at whatever, dial in the guns, move around, just be annoying. We got Fusiliers up there, try to weaken their forces, and for right now. So they're
Okay, so
to
the
kind.
advance guard could move west on the Glendow Brandenburg Road all the way to where they come into contact and create nuisance. The main body is to stop in the large hill mass southwest of Schonegaro. Is that right?
Correct. And does the order of march matter to you at this time?
Not at this point. You're just
Thank
because you
you.
just marched along the road. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All righty. So the goal here in the north is to, right now we're going to appear weak, but then that's part of the game. We appear weak initially, and they're going to think, the main body must be coming up this way. They're going to suspect that we're doing what we're actually doing. Then we're going to start to increase the tempo and the pressure on their defenses. And then they're going to think, well, maybe that's a ruse. Maybe they're faking us out and there's not actually the main body, and they're trying to make us believe that the main body is here. And then they're going to get the report that Titan is coming in from the south through Lehnin and Golzo. And then that's going to confirm their suspicions that we're performing a south hook, if you will. Then they will detach reinforcements to the south. And at that point, after those reinforcements have gone south far enough, we will then push against them. It is possible they could decide to attack out of their defenses, which would be pretty good for us because they would be attacking out of a position where they are strong. Of course, they could reman those defenses with reserves, so thereby retaining the benefit of the defensive line while pushing us. But if that happens, it would simply trigger the movement of the main body forward, because they're going to find it out anyway. They're going to discover it. If we fall back, they're going to discover it. So we don't want to be falling back to the point where they discover the main body. We want them to discover the main body moving towards them. And the reason for that is if they push us back here and discover the main body, we will have lost the element of surprise that we intend, and we lose time because this distance then has to be covered in the other direction. And so we lose 1 to 2 hours of time, which means the reinforcements that are moving south can then make the U-turn and come up. So we don't want to do that. Instead, we want to catch them. If they're going to push, we want to go ahead and advance right away so that we can get across before these guys get word and begin to turn around. So ideally, we're across as these guys are here turning around to come after us. So time becomes important. So no, we don't want to yield this position. We want to hold it even if they attack. And if they do attack, then we have to send our main body forward right away to reinforce and push across. All right, here is another screenshot for us. So let's pop that out. Here we are. It's difficult to see in the browser view. Let's do it like this. There we are. All right, so the advanced guard is there. The main body is pushing forward. We're going to have the no change to the orders though. No change to the orders, I don't feel. Just wait for Paul to pop in here and then we'll tell him no change. We do want to hear the report. And we'll talk about change in orders all the time. All right, we're still waiting for Paul. He'll interrupt. One of the problems is people who change orders all the time. If your plan is okay, or if you're kind of moving along, no change in mission orders should be the normal order. One of the problems I've noticed with some players is they feel like if they don't change or adjust their orders constantly, they feel like they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So they're constantly trying to make some change in their orders. And that just generates a lot of work for the umpire. Not to mention in real life, it would generate a lot of work for your staff and your men. And the more you run around changing your orders, the more you probably end up deviating from your original plan. So it's generally not a good idea to sit there and be constantly changing your orders. So if things are going the way they should be going, there's no need to issue a change
Marshall?
in mission orders. Go ahead, Paul.
You see from your channel that your advanced guard has pushed forward in order to create a ruckus. In fact, they found the enemy regimental sized body, anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 soldiers, in the same position that they've seen before, kind of tucked in beneath that river, using that high ground there. So they're in a strong position there, covering that bridge. Your main body, following your orders, has moved forward using the screening position of those hills there to keep out of sight.
Very well. No
I'll be back
change
for
in orders.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll be back shortly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Paul's going to give me time to think again. But yeah, no change in orders. You know, obviously, if we engage at all, we're going to be at a bit of a disadvantage, so it's not good. But again, the purpose is to appear weak initially. Then we will appear strong in a minute. But for now, we want to appear weak initially. Change of mission orders is one of the big decisions that a commander must make in any battle. You do not, however, want to be changing your orders until the circumstances on the battlefield have changed significantly enough to warrant it. In other words, you don't want to do it just to do it. However, there will be a time when the battle is won or the battle is lost, or circumstances on the battlefield have changed such that the original plan is no longer acceptable. In that case, you would issue a change of mission orders. You might distribute what's called a circular, which is a dispatch sent to all of your commanders informing them of the change and what that change is supposed to be. Or you could issue more individual orders, which are a little bit more specific and to the point, telling each individual commander what they're supposed to do, but not necessarily giving them the full details on what the whole army is doing. Which version of that you should be doing depends on you as a commander and the situation in general. If, for example, there's concern that your dispatches could be intercepted if you do not have a strong front line, good security, good flank security, if the distances involved are great rather than short, you might not want to send a circular that outlines your entire plans. Because if one of those couriers or that particular courier is captured, then your orders could be read by the enemy, who would then be able to act against your change of mission orders and frustrate those plans in the worst possible way. On the other hand, if you are in close proximity to your commanders, and like you're like within practically line of sight at least of their headquarters through a telescope, and you don't have intervening enemy units because your line is pretty solid, go ahead and send the circular. I think when all things are equal, it is better for your commanders to know the overall plan so that if they have to use their discretion, if they understand the commander's intent, they can use their discretion, but they know what the limits are. It's one of the problems with not following orders. The only time you should deviate from orders is if it's consistent with
What
the
are your
commander's
orders?
intent. No change in orders.
No change in orders was your orders. That's right. Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
We brought it back.
Yeah. So when changing orders as a commander, you could either issue a circular, which is advisable when it's preferable because you have all of your commanders clued in. They can get a sense of what your intentions are, or you can actually explicitly tell them. And that allows them to use their judgment within the limits of your intent to inform their orders and their decisions as they operate. And that's probably one of the best things you can do. It gives them a certain degree of autonomy and flexibility because they're up close to the situation. But again, they know what their limits are. But again, if security of your communications is a potential concern, then you don't want to take the risk of your master plan falling into the hands of the bad guys. So you'll want to issue more specific and to the point individual orders. A little more work, certainly, but if those orders get captured or something happens, you're not telegraphing to the enemy your intentions. So in this case, though, we're going to hold. We're not going to change our orders because there's no reason to. Yes, we have encountered the enemy. And to be clear, the enemy is on this ridge. And they have artillery here. And they are covering this crossing here. So we do not want to attempt to push this crossing. I don't think I have red blocks here. Oh, yes, I do. I could put some red blocks out. So let's take 3 of these and 1 of these and put these out here. This appears to roughly be the known enemy composition of their forces. We'll put something here, here. I imagine it's more or less like so. And that's fine. In fact, they probably don't even need to have a flanking force here. They could actually just do this. But whatever. Does not matter. This would probably be how I do it with a certain amount in reserve. Defend in depth there. In case the enemy decides to kind of push or charge across. This here is actually kind of unnecessary here. It could actually be over here. But it doesn't matter. So here we are holding and waiting. It is now 0900. I don't know what time we started, but I'm going to assume 0600. All right, I'm asking LaFondiose in chat. What time did the units begin their marches? 0600. You'll notice the specific wording of the request. When I initially wrote everything out, I wrote like, what time did the operation begin? But then realized it's kind of vague and it can be misinterpreted as, like what time did you wake up this morning or anything, when what matters is actually what time did we start marching along the road. So I honed the question to ask, what time did the units begin their marches? Because that's actually what I want to know. If you ask the wrong question, or you ask even the right question but in the wrong way, your answer might not be what you want, because you can't assume what the other person is thinking. You need to have questions that are clear, concise, and to the point. They have to be very specific. even if you have to go so far as to identify a unit or a formation or a feature or a time or a place, whatever it may be, you have to be specific. Now, that doesn't mean the question needs to take, a whole paragraph. It's not, 3 sentences to ask one question. It should be summarized in one sentence. Subject, verb, express a complete thought, and end with punctuation. You know, began 0600, now 0950. That's interesting that he stopped the clock at 0950 instead of 10 hours. So it's a 10-minute deviation from the norm. If I were to metagame that, that would tell me as a player that something has happened. Whether that happened to my front or on the other front, I don't know. But I don't want to metagame that because I just don't know. So I'm going to kind of ignore the timestamp. The information that I wanted was what time did we begin? I got that, 0600. And so now we've been moving for 3 hours, and apparently we are now in this position. And this means, of course, that our friend here is in about 24. He should be around here at least, maybe further on. So hopefully if the enemy is doing enemy things, and they're not just sitting here camping out and roasting marshmallows, a report should have been generated around now. Enemy contact should be starting around now. And a report should be generated that is going to move here. And it will probably travel twice as fast. So that's 1 hour, about 90 minutes or so for the report. So the report should get here about 11. And then the order will come down about 12. And they'll begin moving just about right away. So I would think about 1 o'clock, it should be safe to begin the advance. So I'm going to write that down as my potential time to begin the main effort. So let's write that down just as a note. $1,300. That's probably when we will begin our main effort. So it's time to try to appear strong. But in order to do that, I don't want to reveal too much of my hand. I want to make them think that I'm faking them out. So I would send these 2 cavalry forward to add their number, but then no more. Then no more. Might even have them do something cute like right up this way, but I think that's a complete waste. Maybe I have them right south. I might do that. I might have them right south and back, or even just send vedettes. Let me see here. It's a squadron. All right. Hello, Paul. Are you there?
Okay. So your advance guard has pushed forward, and it is now has a bit of an artillery duel. 6 of your guns are firing at 6 of theirs on the heights. They have the advantage of the heights. No real casualty at this point. A lot of artillery flying back and forth. It's pretty much a long range at this point, so not a lot of damage, but there's a lot of noise that way. Your force continues to hold in the mountains, and your you have a note or a dispatch from the your southern force. Says contact at the crossroads west of Gulsdorf, small cavalry scouting force, and he says he should be able to proceed as planned. I'll come back for your orders in a second, pending your questions.
No questions at this time.
Marshal, your orders.
All right, let's have two of. Do I have the other two squadrons available as part of the main body of cavalry?
You do.
Okay, send those two squadrons forward to the advance guard. Have one of those squadrons right off to the south, like they're looking for a crossing. They're going to ride to the little lake and then turn around and come back.
Okay.
Let's have the artillery shift its focus of fire against enemy infantry.
Okay.
So they won't be doing counter battery. They'll be killing guys. Probably they'll have more effect that way anyway. Otherwise, we continue to hold.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. happened here? There we are. All right, we do need to send a dispatch. I'm writing a dispatch now. And I'm basically reporting artillery duel along river. Good luck as you break through. Now this message is intentionally vague in case it does get intercepted, because the range here, the distance from which the message must travel across a lot of ground, anything is kind of possible here. So the dispatch is worded as it is: artillery duel along river. Good luck as you break through. This does not inform the enemy that we have our main body in reserve, waiting, hiding. It suggests that perhaps all we have in the north is that small advance guard, and we are weak. And it then suggests that the main body and the main attack is actually in the south. So that's the nature of the communication. So we will see what happens. We are sending the 2 squadrons forward, one of which will come south and then return north. And again, the entire point of this exercise is to appear strong where we are weak. The arrival of additional cavalry forces may convince him that the main body is up here. But then, when after another hour or so he does not actually see the main body appear, he may come to the conclusion, especially seeing our scouting behavior along the river and back, he may come to the conclusion that the main body is in fact in the south and begin sending reinforcements in that direction. So we're going to wait until about 1300. Maybe we'll even wait to 1400. Hopefully we'll get a dispatch soon that gives us a bit of a clue. Then we will go forward. Okay. And it looks like everything has gone according to plan. It is now 10:40. So the time dilation there does indicate that things are happening. Probably more in the south than in the north, but nothing to worry about. So 1300. It is hard to be patient. I am anxious to push, but we have to be patient. You want to play, and instead I'm just kind of hanging out here looking at the same screen turn after turn, which hardly counts as playing. But if the goal is to win, you can't think of it in terms of a game or a sporting event. You have to think of it in terms of a military operation, and sometimes waiting, in fact, often waiting, is a big part of that. You have to give the plan time to work. I have to give Titan time to draw enemy reinforcements to the south. It is possible he's being matched or overmatched by a small diversionary force to the south, in which case we're in a lot of trouble. But we have given him some punching power, at least in the form of the infantry. I didn't even want to detach the infantry to him. Maybe we should have also sent him some artillery, but I didn't want to dilute the force that's punching in the north. However, if the enemy has already sent a substantial force to the south, then he could be in trouble. And if he is being pushed back, it would tell me that I need to begin my attack immediately, because it suggests that the enemy is strong in the south and pushing forces to the north. Whether one way or the other doesn't matter, although, of course, the nightmare would be between us and Brandenburg, which is our objective. And if they're doing that, we're just in a lot of trouble, so we don't want that.
So can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
Great. Yeah, a little fiddly there. Okay. I always am on my best behavior because I realize I'm being recorded for posterity. So the situation is that where the broken arrow is, or the hashed arrow is, your cavalry has done that demonstration that you ordered. Your
Sure.
artillery has begun firing on the troops in the town there. Their one battery, the fire has slackened, which is interesting. Your main body continues to be in good form, hidden behind those hills there. But that's the situation. Let's check for dispatches very quickly.
I
So
do have one out to
you get
Titan. Yeah.
you get a dispatch from Titan who says he's pushed up to Lehnin. It's held by infantry and artillery. The number's unknown. He doubts he can push any further based on the strength there. So that's the note from him. Okay.
Very well. Okay.
Great. I'll be
Move
back
up
for your
and
order shortly.
okay, thank you.
We-
All right, it looks like we need to move up. And we need to begin the attack, because his lack of ability to push through Lehnin suggests to him, or suggests to the enemy, that the main force is in the north. In other words, the ruse is up. They know. So now we have to go ahead and push. The slacking of fire may be an attempt on their part to bait us forward. I don't care. At this point, they're just playing games the same way we were playing games. Now it's time to get real serious. So we're going to begin the main attack. Yes, there will be casualties, but if we break through, we can get through to Brandenburg, and we can also defend on these hills here against any reinforcement. But it is time to act. Delay at this point serves the enemy, not us. So I guess this goes out the window, as many plans of battle do. That's okay. All right, we're going to fire off another dispatch to Titan now, once I have the accurate time. And it's a one-word dispatch, attacking. There's nothing else to say. There's going to be... Yeah, go ahead.
Your orders.
What time is it, please?
The time now is 10:40.
10:40. Okay, as indicated. It's sending another dispatch to Titan. One word, attacking. We're going to go forward and attack. We're going to
Okay.
lead with the artillery with a brief bombardment, emphasis on enemy infantry, not
Yep.
counter battery. We're going to fire on the infantry. And then as soon as we feel the enemy infantry is weakened or giving way, we will push through with the main body.
Got it. The main body will remain in the hills during this initial attack?
No, go ahead and move them all up.
Okay.
Move them all up.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want any delay at this point. If we were to leave the main body back while moving the artillery up, then the sudden appearance of all this artillery would suggest to the enemy that our main body is there anyway. So we're not going to fool anybody. And we're going to concentrate on the infantry because that's what we want to destroy. That's what's going to be the problem. The artillery is, of course, important, but a lot of people kind of fixate on counter battery, and you waste a lot of shots on that. Whereas it's the enemy infantry that's really going to do the heavy lifting in combat. So you want to destroy, you want to clear off the enemy infantry, destroy their fortifications or defenses or whatever, burn through their infantry, weaken them, get them to rout and run away. Because without the infantry, the artillery is pretty much unsupported and almost defenseless, especially in the face of cavalry. So let's get rid of that infantry. And then, of course, our other units will push on through. And I don't know what the order of march here is really going to be, but it doesn't matter. I would assume I have commanders here that will worry about that. $56 in reserve. All right, yeah, we want that artillery up there. It's going to take about an hour or two even to really get into it. It's going to take time, at least an hour to get up there and come online. But again, now time is of the essence, so we don't want to spend too much time dueling either or fighting. At the end of the day, we want to push through as quickly as we can, as soon as we feel they are weakened. So that's going to have to be a conditional order on my part. As soon as it's observed that the enemy appears to be weakened, the artillery is to go forward with, the infantry is to go forward with artillery and cavalry support and push through. We don't have to get particularly specific with these orders. That's not the problem that's being evaluated here. This is one of the Moltke problems. So what's being evaluated here is ultimately the overall plan or the strategy. The faint south main body with a delayed attack to the north. as our solution to the problem. And that's actually what's being tested. The remarkable thing to learn about that is our game, our victory or a loss, was almost certainly decided before the battle even began. The battle actually is just a reveal. You've heard of a gender reveal? Well, here's a battle reveal. But the gender of the baby, of course, was determined a long time before the pink or the blue colors appear, as at a gender reveal. Likewise, here, the battle was decided at what point we concluded our planning, long before we decided on what to actually do with what. I've received a screenshot now at 11:50 a.m. and it roughly shows everything the same. It indicates that the main body is in position here along with the cavalry. I'll show you the screenshot. And again, this is why we don't have to give very precise or granular orders to individual units. You can see the umpire isn't really interested in where I'm putting my cavalry or my artillery, or which infantry brigade is in front of the other. That's not even being tracked. That's really just for my entertainment or misdirection, even. What matters is, again, we're going south with the main body, making a delayed attack in the north. And ultimately, that's what's going to determine the outcome more than anything. Paul is probably, perhaps, rolling dice in the background to resolve or determine what happens when these guns fire on each other and so on. But it really isn't necessary. When you have two batteries at long range sniping at each other, counter battery fire, it's not going to do a whole lot. What should produce an effect, though, would be multiple guns online, firing against a single infantry unit, multiple batteries. That should produce a pretty discernible effect. So hopefully I get some kind of credit for that. But the fact is, the umpire isn't necessarily interested in these granular orders. And again, the order of march, what brigade is in front, and so on, not too relevant. Not going to say entirely irrelevant. The blocks do exist. I would imagine that the umpire map has some layout. His umpire map is probably different, quite different looking from mine. But we're just going to operate under the assumption that our subordinates are doing just about the best job they can, and that's true on both sides. What wins the battle for red right now is if red's main body comes into the action here. So whether they're coming from here, as feared, or from the south, the arrival of that main body is what's going to make the difference for red. They either have it or they don't.
Marshall, the attack goes in.
Wonderful.
Terrific, a terrific bombardment, well coordinated. The advance guard doesn't have the strength to get across the river because you think the advance guard is filled with Jaegers and skirmishers, so they're not as as practiced at heavy assaults. So they do lose maybe 200-300 casualties, both injured and wounded. I mean, injured and killed in that initial thing. You've definitely pinned them down. However, the news coming back is that the force on the other side is around 2,500 to 3,000 and not any more than that. You now outnumber them in artillery. The artillery that you have is focused now on firing at their infantry. They are taking casualties, so they have taken losses in this. They do have that high ground there. The main body has moved up into position to conduct its attack, and it's just its lead trace is right behind that hill immediately east of the town, so you're able to attack in the coming hour.
Yeah, definitely attack.
Okay, good. That'd be your order, right? Your attack.
Yep. Just attack, push through.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, so you were able to see from the discussion there, Paul entertained us with some details and teased us with some numbers. Normally, casualty reports are generally just not given. You'll just know that you took some losses because in the middle of battle, nobody has time to count bodies. Nonetheless, the big decision is the focus. And I've made that big decision. As predicted, it took an hour to come up to the line. And now in the second hour, we will push through. Undoubtedly, Red is screaming for reinforcements by now. And again, what's going to decide the battle is where was Red? Where is or was Red? Did they have their forces down here somewhere or anywhere else? Can they get those forces up in time to stop me? Once we get across the river, and maybe even up to this ridge line, we will then dominate the position. So our goal should actually be to get across and to take the heights. So that's what we want to do. Once we do that, we then command this area here, including the crossroads, hopefully. And then we can push a screening force down to the south while the main body pushes through to Brandenburg. So let's go ahead and draw that up for Paul so that he knows what my intent is. He might not want a picture from me, but I'm going to send him one anyway. He might like it. I know when I umpire, I actually prefer a picture. All right, so let's erase all drawn lines. And here we go. Let's make it thicker. It's an attack. Okay, so we have that. And then we'll go ahead and go with the thinner one. Actually want that to go a little further. Well, they belong to third division. So no, that did that. All right, so what we're doing here is we're kind of playing with the blocks, but with purpose. We want to indicate our general intent for the army. Again, these specifics do not matter. But the idea is to show we more or less want to be doing. So let's go ahead and remove them from the screenshot so as not to confuse. All right, so this is the goal. Oh, it looks like all right, so I've just sent the screenshot, but I also have a screenshot of my own, or Paul has one of his own, I should say. And it indicates that we've broken through. The enemy forces are now in the south, and the road to Brandenburg is probably fairly clear now, relatively. And now it just becomes a matter of us protecting our southern flank as we push on through. At this point, I would argue that we may have won this scenario, although it's premature to celebrate. But we have definitely accomplished our mission here. Of course, we don't know what the enemy's doing in the south. The enemy could be doing something that is giving them the victory. So we are certainly concerned. But this is not bad. This is not bad. So I don't know what the enemy was doing. We will be finding out in a moment. Let's see. All right. So here we are. We've expressed our intent. We want to take the hill.
Okay, Marshall.
Hi, Paul.
Your advance guard pulled back as the main body went in for the assault, and you were covered in glory. The enemy had about a regiment, and you were able to push the 17th, 44th, and 56th all in for the attack. The 44th went first. It took the brunt of it. It was able to get to the bridge, and the point at which the enemy decided to flee for safety. So the enemy, about 2,000 soldiers left and headed south toward those hill mass. They were still in somewhat of a military order, but clearly they had had enough, seeing that you were 3 times their number. So it was a bit of a mess getting across there. You're right now, it looks like the 17th and the 56th each lost maybe 300 to 400 soldiers injured or killed each.
Mm-hmm.
Those are units that are around 3,000 in number, and they're able to continue to maneuver. The 44th has kind of gone to ground, and it's probably done for the day in terms of it's fine, but it's lost around 600-700 of its soldiers, and it won't be doing any more fighting today as it reconsolidates across the river. So you have 2 regiments who are able to continue to march. The cavalry is in good shape, but the enemy has been pushed out of that position.
Very well. 44th can lick its wounds, maybe on that hilltop with one battery, where I've indicated my intent. Don't worry about the numbers. I don't think precision matters that much. Cavalry, light infantry, artillery, main body, push forward to Brandenburg. Cavalry to the south to screen those hills. Continue to destroy or harass the enemy, and then secure those hills and hold them, and be a lookout. But basically, that's it.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah. All right, there we go. So now we get to wait and see what the enemy does with this. At this point, if this were a normal Kriegsspiel, and if I've broken through to Brandenburg, that would be game end. However, if game does not end, it means there's something else of consequence that's happening elsewhere. And who knows what that may be? It could be, again, that their main body is coming up. Taking these hills to the south is kind of important. I should be sending forces to hold that position, but really, even if I sent an entire brigade, they would not hold against the enemy main body. But that is not what is important at this time. If we go back to our briefing, we want to relieve the besieged forces. And okay, so I just have to give the order now to march south here at Brandenburg, like so. Now there is one interesting tell that the enemy has given to me. They have telegraphed the position of their main body. Believe it or not, they've told me where their main body is, and it's on this road here. And how did they tell me that? Well, look at their route of retreat. Because they are going to retreat towards support, towards friendly forces, they're not going to retreat just into the blind. They've chose to retreat this direction when they could have retreated towards Brandenburg or anywhere else. By retreating this way, they've informed me, without realizing it, that their main body is probably here around Golzo, or at least that's where it started, and they're looking for relief coming up from the south. Now, I would be interested in sending a large force to the south to hold these hills here, but that's not our objective. Our objective is to march on through. In other words, our troops are needed over here, off map. They're not needed here. They're not doing any work that furthers our cause here. In fact, if we stop here, we play into the enemy's hands because, first of all, we're not doing our mission, which is to relieve Magdeburg, and we give the enemy a second chance to destroy us by some means or another. So we do not want that. I'm not going to worry about the line of communication going back to Potsdam and so on. I've not been told to worry about that, so I can safely assume that that's not a mission objective or parameter here that's being evaluated. Perhaps there are other forces in operation that will secure that line of communication, whatever. Maybe the enemy is already overextended and can't really threaten that line of communication. Who knows, right? But it's not a mission parameter. It's not an objective for us to worry about. So we need to remain focused on our objective. Don't worry about the enemy force at this point. As long as we hold them or delay them long enough to get through here, we should be in good shape. They could be trying to come across country here, in which case we will have to fight them. I think their next line of resistance, if there is one, will be these hills here. So we'll have to see. We'll have to go there. But somehow I don't think they're there. I think they're here in this area. So we do need to push through to the objective, which is here. Let's see here. All right, so let's grab some red blocks. We'll use these. They're here. And we're going to suggest that the enemy is probably here, that they have a second line or a fallback. If they have, in fact, deployed forces here, I don't think it would have been an efficient use of their men, simply because these men here could have been better used up here or somewhere else. It is possible that in retreating this way, they're hoping to misdirect us, but that would be the height of our folly. I would not, or it would be the height of folly, right? Not our folly, of folly, and we're not going to do that. So we need to push. So I don't want to waste time. I hope my order consumes the appropriate amount of time. If we come up to Brandenburg and then stop and lose 30 minutes, that's very bad on me. Should have thought about that before I gave my orders, right? Somehow, though, I expected to see more out of the enemy around here, such as a strong defense at Brandenburg itself, or now in this case, I think perhaps in the hills to the south. The problem for the enemy is that we could outflank them. We could do something like this. So I don't know how defensible this position is. And certainly their main body probably is not here. So just the clues, the clues. Scooby-Doo and the gang suggest to us that the enemy is pretty well spread out. All right, we do need to send a dispatch to Titan to indicate that we are successful. All right. Move these guys off here. Yes, sir. Can you hear
The
me?
two maneuverable brigade regiments, the 17th and the 56th, have reached the outskirts of Brandenburg. They're in good shape, ready to march. The 44th, as you said, is reconsolidating. The cavalry has gone south, and the enemy force, which was bloodied by your larger force, is marching south. So they're about 1 kilometer south, heading on the woods, heading into the woods to your south. So the road to Magdeburg is open.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and push through there with the main body, a little bit of cavalry in the lead, light infantry, followed by artillery, and so on, push through. The cavalry that should be to the south is now going to sweep to the west to make sure that those hills in the road to Magdeburg that are south of Brandenburg are more or less clear. If we encounter the
Okay.
enemy, we have to push through them. The 44th can redeploy to the south as best as able. It may not be able, but I will detach a battery to them. The idea is to just kind of have a presence up there, and it's a little easier to defend. They don't have to attack or do anything fancy, but rather than be present, they can reconstitute there perhaps. If not, they can't. But the big order
Okay.
is to move through, push through.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. All right, so that's the order. You see here, I also sent a dispatch to Titan, breakthrough achieved. Again, the dispatch is succinct and to the point. It's not a secret, so I don't have to be vague or anything in my language. I am telling him that we've kind of accomplished our mission so that he can choose what he wants to do with himself, which is probably come around this way and join us along the road, mind you. That would be my hope. He wouldn't reach us until after night or maybe even the next day. It's going to take him quite a while to cover that distance that we cannot cover. So he'll probably never catch us. The cavalry could, but the cavalry actually needs to clear the way for the infantry regiment. So the cavalry would be, riding to these key locations like here and ensure that it's clear so that the infantry can then come through without having to fight. Hopefully that's the idea. Of course, if it does have to fight, the cavalry's there to support them. The 44th is a concern. I don't like the idea of leaving them behind, but if I can't drag them along, at least they can do something here on this hill. The biggest concern now is, am I breaking through with sufficient force? And hopefully that's a probably. Again, given a night's rest and maybe some early morning marching by some of these units that are left behind, they can reconstitute in the afternoon or evening, rest, and then leave early in the morning to try to catch up. Not quite stealing a march, but catching up nonetheless. And the idea is in the next day or so, we arrive with a fairly significant force. Of course, the enemy is out here doing enemy things, but again, that's not a parameter. It's not an objective. Destruction of the enemy force, enemy army, was not our objective. We can assume perhaps that there are other forces following on that will manage that task for us. In general, in all warfare, all battle, destruction of the enemy army is your objective. But really, if we were to refer to Clausewitz, we simply want to destroy the enemy's will to resist. If we refer to Sun Tzu, it is better to break that will without having to fight him than by fighting him. So, putting all that together, yes, we do need to destroy the enemy army, but more specifically, we need to destroy the enemy will to resist. And sometimes simply outmaneuvering the enemy or taking a key objective, such as a capital or a road network, a nexus or a supply hub or something, can accomplish that without the need for combat. So you certainly don't want to do combat for the sake of combat. In fact, the greatest general is probably the one who wins by fighting the least. So it's probably true in anything you do, any game. Maybe you like to play the Total War computer game series. If you can outmaneuver the enemy and capture their cities without having to fight them all the time, That's better than stopping to fight them constantly. Not as fun, but it is an efficient way to win. Remember the fundamental economic problem, which is scarcity. All of your resources, uh, men, material, food, and of course, the most precious of all, which is time, have limited supply. You want to consume as little time, lives, and treasure as possible to accomplish your goal, because at the end of the day, you all want to go home and work your job and live your life and take vacations and raise a family and do all these other things. But when you're throwing things away in war, when you're burning things up and destroying things and losing lives, you're subtracting from that. Now, that may be necessary, but you want to do that. You want to minimize how much you do that in general. Not as fun while gaming, but again, Kriegsspiel isn't that kind of a game where you play for the purpose of fighting and gaming. It's more of a mental exercise in being efficient. Just like a farmer wants to produce the most food they can with the least amount of soil and labor, likewise, we want to win a battle with the least amount of lives and treasure. Or I should say, win a war, but also win a battle. So there we have it. What's really cool about this is you learn. I'm learning here, and even if there are times when you think you're winning and you're actually losing, so that could be surprising here, but not according to the briefing. And I'm fairly confident in how we've done here, according to the mission parameters of the problem. But we'll see. This should be the last turn. You should go to debrief after this, I would expect, unless there's another development. Another development might be enemy units on these hills here. I don't know that they can hold us very well in the woods. Forests are not the defensible paradises that people assume they are. All right, we have the end scenario here. All right, let's go to debrief.
Up for that.
There we go.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, the
Very
hook line
nicely
and
done,
sinker.
everybody. Very nicely done.
Hello.
If you go to any of your channels, you can pull up the end of the scenario. Well, congratulations. You just played Moltke Problem 30. In this case, the situation was blue were the students, and they were asked how to most directly go to Magdeburg. What's interesting is that, and I'll put the actual Moltke Problem in the green room channel so you can have a look at it. You took the blue force took the opposite approach. Moltke's solution was to actually go down through Lehnin, have the advance guard redeploy down to Lehnin, secure Lehnin for the main body to go directly down through Golzow and then straight to Magdeburg. The idea was to do that quickly enough to catch the enemy division going north. So literally, you flipped it completely 180. They tried to pin the enemy in Brandenburg. So, Marshall, I guess just like talk through your conception of the plan that you and Titan had. And Titan, I know you got to go here in a few minutes, but talk through just for a minute, and then Titan can give his thoughts before he has to go.
Yeah, feint to the south, main body to the north, but leave the advance guard up there to make you think, hey, they're probably going to come north and wait for the appearance of the main body, but then kind of do the reverse psychology thing. When Titan appears in the south around Lehnin, the enemy should then redeploy to the south, and then we appear from out of nowhere with the main body and punch through to Brandenburg and then on south.
Yeah. Titan, before I know you've got to go, you played a perfect game the way you set that up. I mean, you actually took all the tactical actions to make yourself appear bigger than you did. Talk through your how you approached that down there in Lehnin.
Yeah, well, I found that cavalry single squadron, I think it was, very early, just pushed through it aggressively. No chance for it to report more than, holy shit, there's so much horse here, which hopefully they did. And then, yeah, get into Lehnin, make all the preparations to disturb them, skirmish, put up a lot of smoke, move onto the southern flank, onto the hills, be as annoying as humanly possible, and then fall back once I realize, well, any longer and this will just get dicey.
Great Gold, you were asking. Go ahead, sorry.
No, Great Gold. What
Great,
was it?
Great Gold, talk about your concept of the operation, kind of your approach. I thought it was really interesting the way you guys organized your side.
Yeah. Initially, we of course had like weaker forces holding the two most likely crossings, one at Lehnin and the one east of Brandenburg, and we had a large central reserve between Brandenburg and Golzau. And how the game went was basically I was down in the south. I was the one that was fighting at Lehnin. And initially, upon the enemy cavalry screen, I actually thought that you were going with the plan that you ended up going with. But so I waited. I didn't call on the reserve immediately.
Right.
But as soon as Tubelaki sent me reports from the north that the enemy has poked at him but hasn't made a significant enough advance, I fell for the bait, hook, line, and sinker, basically, after that. So that second part to the ruse was wholly necessary, because I myself and Tubelaki did definitely think that a large cavalry concentration like this was smoke. So it was definitely necessary to your plan to have that two-parter.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And well done.
But now, what you didn't know, Great Gold and Tobeleki, is that actually the blue had more cavalry than a simple division's worth. So they had an additional, cavalry force, which gave them the advantage of they could put more cavalry in different places, which is part of the problem. Tobeleki, talk about how it looked from your perspective. You made a midnight ride down south.
Yeah, I think if I hadn't done that, it would have not been as catastrophic. But what it basically was, I deployed with the advance guard east of Brandenburg, and I sent some cavalry northwards to go look at that unlikely option. And I saw very little. I saw the enemy advance guard come forth and set up against us, and I thought, okay, this is probably a fixing attack, of some sort. And then I got reports that there was an engagement in Lehnin, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go look at Lehnin and see what's happening there for myself. Yeah, I went down there, and then I ride back north, and the enemy is past Brandenburg by the time I return. So yeah, I definitely fell for it. I definitely fell for it. That's for sure.
Good. I know you have to drop. I want to thank you for coming and joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, if you guys stay around for a few hours, I might make it back.
Yeah, no, we're
Alright.
just going to talk for a little bit more. But thank you. I wanted to acknowledge you for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was fun. You did a good job today. So
Thank you,
GG,
Titan.
Marshall.
Thank you.
Yeah,
oh,
make this a nice video. Bye.
I will.
yeah. So I thought that was a really interesting way to organize. I'd never seen that in Great Gold and Tobeleki. That was super interesting. So you basically personally both acted as trigger or reconnaissance and kept your reserve centrally, and either one of you could have called the reserve, basically, right?
Yes.
And how would you prioritize that, or what was, because to have that work would be the joint decision on where the main attack was coming. How did you guys talk about ways to who would get the reserve, basically?
We reasoned that essentially either of us would be able to sufficiently tell whether the attack against us or against our area would be the main effort from the enemy. And it turned out that was not the case. But that was the idea going forward. And we believe that for a reserve to work in the first place, the only way that it could ever be used effectively is if both of us could independently command up the reserve when we deem necessary.
Yeah, I think the name of the game with this is speed. So if we were, say, separated, as we were anyway, and reports came in from multiple directions, we'd have to confer with each other. We would have to
Right,
if
right,
it
right.
would have to go through the other person, then it would just take longer to draw up the reserve. So I really feared that by the time a reserve would arrive up to the front, that we would just get overrun. So we wanted to cut out some of the middlemen in the process and just trust in the commander that they know when they need a reserve. And I think
I actually think that construct is brilliant. I think let me tell you what I love about it. You remove the need for dispatches and kind of faulty reports coming back because you both had eyes on the ground. You were able to make the call based, in other words, you knew what you were looking for. And actually, Greco, to your credit, you kept asking how many people are in front of me because what you were looking for was an indicator that was the main body, right?
Yeah, and if I didn't get reports from the north of different information, ironically, I wouldn't have called on the reserve.
Right,
I
right,
remember
right.
I was saying that, I think this is bait. Well, let's wait, and then.
Yeah, right. You did. It was. I think that's a really interesting construct, and I want to give you guys credit for it. That is a really sound way to organize your triggering because you didn't have any preconceived notions about where it was coming. You were prepared for both, right? Now the actual execution, stuff happens. That's fine. Marshall, that was a really, really well executed plan. I mean, I think Titan just did a fantastic job. If you listen to his orders, he was like, "I just want to be as annoying as possible," and he seemed to have achieved that. How did you guys come up with that in terms of collaborating as planners?
I think initially he favored a more southerly attack, push through with the main body to Lehnin, Glazo, and then cut cross country to that road south of Brandenburg and then push on to the objective. Whereas for me, I didn't like the idea of going off road at all. I'm just a firm
Right,
believer of in this period, even in the modern period, you kind of stick to the road network. That's why all the battles are fought where they are, is because of road
right,
networks. I just think going into the weeds doesn't usually benefit you. I'm trying to stay in the box. So too many commanders try to go outside the box and it just fails
right.
miserably. That used to be me. I've learned, just stay in the box, just stay conventional and stick to fundamentals and do what works. And more times out of 10, or 6 times out of 10, you're going to win. um,
Yeah.
so that was my big thing. And likewise with the counter battery stuff, I wanted to fire on that infantry and weaken the infantry because that's really what matters in a battle is the infantry, not the artillery. The artillery is just a
That was an
tool.
important order that you made because it did actually cause casualties, which helped help you force that bridge. So that was where a very specific tactical order paid off.
Yeah, yeah. So
That was good.
I figured I favored the northern approach, and we agreed on it.
Mhm.
And then Titan, to his credit, said, I want to take some infantry. I want to take a regiment. And I was like, I don't know. But then we were out of time, and so I kind of agreed to it. And then in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that was actually a good idea because he's
Yeah, that
got to
was a good
appear
idea.
strong.
That
He's
was a
got
very
to
good
appear
idea.
Yeah, yeah.
strong. You're going to be looking for infantry. I narrate my thoughts throughout this entire recording, which I'll be uploading to YouTube here shortly. So you'll be able to hear what was going through my head every step of the way.
As frightening as an idea as that is, we'll look forward to listening in to
I just talk about
what
dogs
goes
and food
through
the whole
the
time, but
general's head.
yeah.
That's a whole different thing. What a terrific job. I think what I will do on the map is actually add a road from Goslau west so that it looks like a big desert right there, just conceptually, and that needs to be a road just to signal to players that you can get across that just as quickly.
Oh, but
Yeah.
we were told that the road south of Goslav also leads to Magdeburg.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All roads lead to Magdeburg. It's just a matter
Yeah.
of which creates a dilemma for the red player because the red player has to cover multiple avenues and doesn't have enough forces to do it in an even-handed fashion. So a plan like the one you come up with is necessary. You have to use a reserve to swing toward where the enemy goes. So, my
Yeah.
I
point.
think it was.
This is one of those
Sorry.
cases where both sides can have competent forces and competent plans, but just the geography determines the outcome. And in the
Right.
recording, I talk about how I compare it to a gender reveal. The gender of the baby is decided at conception, the actually before, but to be scientifically correct, but the reveal, takes place later, and it's the same thing with the battle. When the battle starts, it's actually just the reveal. The outcome of the battle is more or less predetermined already.
Right.
So
I don't know. I think in this particular one, it was like really, really bad that we didn't have eyes at the critical point at the critical time.
mhm.
I think if that happened, then one of the reserve brigades could have, I think, I don't know, reasonably
I
made it up there.
do want to mention, although the umpire can dispute, by the time I had gone south, or at least like the turn immediately after I gave the order to move south, I believe all of the reserves had been called to go to Lehnin at that point.
That was the turn
yeah.
I called it. Yes.
Yes. I think our critical error was maybe a bit premature of calling of the reserve, and of course me going south, I couldn't do anything to react to the north either, so it wouldn't have mattered anyways, I suppose.
Well, here's an idea that I think you make an excellent point. What I would suggest is that the trigger point for the reserves is the point at which either the Lehnin force or the Brandenburg force were forced out of their position, because at that would definitely verify that you have overwhelming force, right?
Right.
Yeah,
That's
but
usually
the
where a main effort
concern,
is. Yeah.
yeah, but the
Yeah,
concern with that is that if we wait until the initial point of contact is overwhelmed, that it just creates a snowball effect where the overwhelmed brigade cannot really form necessary resistance anymore, even when reinforced, because they're already battered. And even after reinforcements, if the enemy has massed sufficient amounts of like really overwhelming amounts of men, then they can just continue this effect and roll over the best defensive position, and then it just gets progressively easier for them. That's why
one of the things to
the
consider
lower.
is that in this period, when any unit is engaged, it tends to lose steam really quickly in terms of going to ground. And so the Franco-Prussian War period, you'd have units would kind of crouch in position for hours and hammer away at each other, but not being able to really move anymore. Even the Prussians, with all their ferocious training, would tend to, once they got into a firefight, that's where they were for a while. So it's just a thing to consider. But I think I cannot tell you how much I love your plan, though, because your approach is it's called decision point tactics in modern parlance, and you created clear decision points, a clear reserve. I just think it was a superior way to think about the battlefield, which is not surprising for the two of you. And then Marshall, yours was about really great execution. I think Titan did a great job, and then you knew the moment to attack, and you pushed it through. So I think it's a tremendously executed Kriegsspiel.
We are all
Super.
winners. You are all winners.
No,
Give
you won
yourselves a
this
big
one.
hint.
Yeah, you
No,
won this one.
no, you won this one. Mark,
Well done.
no. There's safe spaces here. You won.
Yeah, well done.
What? So
What
let's
I
switch
would,
gears just to good. Go ahead, sir.
I just want to throw this last thought out there. Why not, as red, defend in depth at both locations? Divide the forces more or less equally. Defend in depth so that in the north, I still only see that initial brigade, which baits me. But you have additional forces in depth. So even if I do push off that first force, you've got reserves right behind them that can appear and continue to defend. And the same way in the south, in which case, either way, as Paul pointed out, I'm going to get stuck. I'm going to get stuck in and delayed, which then gives you time to strip reinforcements from one side or the other and basically
Well,
be able to hold all day.
that's your problem. Like once you put in this period, once you put unit in the defense, and Greg Lloyd pointed out, you lose them because they would be in defense. In other words, you would very difficult to get a unit that would be defending in depth on the east, for example, to go north, or so stripping them out would be the problem. Where if you hold them in a light reserve ready to march, then they'll move in either direction. So I think you would lose a bit of flexibility if you defended in depth.
Yeah.
Well, there you
And-
go.
Also, I think it just sets up for like defeat in detail. Because if we just say we spread 50-50, then all you need to do is cavalry screen one of the approaches and smash all of your strength into the other, and then that's like in terms of proportions, 50% of our army against like 90% of yours. That's not even counting the numbers.
And our point of view, we actually had no initial viewing of any blue forces. Like from our point of view, your advanced guard retreated actually, so we really did not know at all which approach you would want to do, if you even wanted to use both approaches at all. What our thought was, me and Great Gold had immediately agreed that the most likely course of action for blue would be to go through Lehnin and try and bypass us via Lehnin and the south of Lehnin.
Yeah.
That was our initial thought after
Yeah,
we
that's the
viewed the map.
self-evident one. But in my opinion, if I were to be on the blue side, I would have done exactly the same that you did. Well, maybe a bit different. I would have pressed cavalry on all 3 major roads. That's the only difference I would have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
these problems are terrific, because they really are very simple problems, but they have just enough variability that you have to make choices. Right? You
agree.
have to choose how to do that. Let's switch gears a little bit. How did it play? How did it feel? Because you're all experienced players, and I really value your opinion. And I was taking notes as I went through. How did it play with this format?
There's
How'd it
not
feel?
enough snacks.
Well,
Yeah, not enough snacks or lunch breaks. But
Great Gold. I know you're an artist. What do you think as a player, since you've seen so many of these games?
I'm an artist.
You're a Kriegsspiel artist.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, this one was a happy little disaster. This one, but I like the format, despite not seeing any screenshots and like disruption markers or whatever. I think the verbal descriptions were amazing, and I could almost visualize the exact position of my troops in my head, and just based off of a couple of arrows and the description. So I think the experience really didn't lose anything from not being able to see the units themselves. I think the turns were really fast, but didn't lose the quality of the resolution, or at least didn't feel like it on my end. I really cannot name anything that I found bad with the whole format. I liked it a lot.
Okay. Marshall, what do you think?
These were 10-minute turns, roughly. Looking through the turn log here, the looking through your reports, which I think is an excellent and just about perfect cadence. I think this was an excellent scenario. Very well run, Paul. I expect nothing less of you. You are a master at doing this, and it was clearly on display today. The map also appeared attractive. The pieces looked nice. The reports were clear and succinct. I had virtually no questions. It was, there was nothing to distract me from thinking about and solving the problem in front of me. So I think this is brilliantly executed from an umpire perspective. Very, very happy with it.
All right. Thank you. Motlke, what do you think?
I believe the format was actually really cool. First time I've encountered a format like this, and I can definitely affirm the point that this helped avoid distractions in terms of thinking about the issue itself. Like, not seeing the pieces helped me avoid wasting time thinking on very tactical decisions, like very small scale tactical decisions, which I usually do waste a lot of time on. I'm not sure if that was your intention or not, but it definitely kept me away from thinking about that sort of stuff, which I like. And as for the turn time, perfect, really perfect. I think it was really good. It was a really, really, really good live game, I would say.
Well, thank you. Cool. Okay, great. It's a different set of muscles doing it on Discord than doing it in a room, because in a room the cadence, the players can actually watch you walking around. So you're almost like become the clock, right? So they see you coming and they get ready. So that's fun. The dispatches are a little janky because in the room we'll hand you a 3x5 card and you carry it to the next table. So I was scrambling a little bit to figure that one out. And then the map the Golzo Road West. I'm still looking at my own notes. And then was the planning, that's the question I had, was the planning period long enough?
Oh yeah,
I would say.
I think it was for us.
We ran
That's
a
good.
few
20
minutes
minutes?
over. I think we ran a few minutes over, 2 or 3 minutes over, but Otherwise,
You
yeah,
know,
but you basically had 20 minutes once you got set up, and that
Yeah.
feel
you
right?
know
or-
what I realized, Marshall?
what's that?
That this battle was an exact replica of the Battle of Seltzo.
Oh,
Almost
Lord.
an exact replica.
Oh, well, maybe I learned a lesson. I just don't realize
Yeah, you learned from the master.
it. Great Gold coming to snatch that victory away.
In fact,
Nobody's
this is
snatching
also
victory
my
away.
victory. My plan won twice. Wow, well done.
All
I'm
right,
even
super.
smarter than myself.
The planning was fine. The planning time was good. We, at least for our team, we actually finished before the planning time ended, at least by like a minute or two.
Great. Okay, good. All right, cool. Well, listen, it's Sunday after Sunday morning or evening, depending on where you're at. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. And this is a format I'm gonna keep developing. We are representing the IKS at Origins. I'm doing 4 of these at Origins. I want to make sure that I iron out even down to like which roads are on the maps. And so I just don't want any distraction to Marshall. I love the way you said that. No distractions on the day other than people just playing it. The Georgetown guys really enjoyed it. You all have got so positive feedback. So I want to take 3 scenarios up there that have been kind of battle tested and stress tested. So this will be one of them. But super. Thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
You
Thank you
got
for
it,
the game.
Paul. Thank you.
All
And
right, guys.
what I want to suggest, Paul, just as a final note in closing, is that we
Sure.
create a little library of maps, print and play kind of thing, which we've already discussed in the admin, and create this so that we can send ambassadors out, evangelists out, with these in hand. Very quick, cheap, simple, easy to run. Send them out, and that's going to achieve the overall mission of the IKS right there. You've solved
Yeah.
it. You've figured out how to evangelize. So
Yeah. You know, I was thinking
you are
we could-
worthy of your name, Paul.
Well, I was thinking if you had because you buy these baggy games, right? They're just in a baggy.
Yeah.
We could take a map that was in 8.5 by 11 or A4 that you would
Yep.
you could basically tape together, and then
Mhm.
you would have Lego blocks, and we could give them out as gifts
Yep.
and have them be a problem as simple as this one, and say, hey, you can set up and do this, and it becomes a physical thing that people can walk away and say, look, I have a Kriegsspiel.
Yep.
And the total cost is like $30. It's really not that expensive, but it becomes like a giveaway that evangelizes, but also you can actually use it and play it. But the little blocks are the key because it doesn't just become cardboard counters. It's actually, you have something to play with.
Correct.
So we'll keep working on that.
So yeah. And
Thanks so much, guys. I'm
we've
going to
got
keep running
sources.
these. You're always welcome to come back in and stress test them, but I'm going to try to run several more of these to do. So
I gotta
Good
take my
deal.
revenge.
My pleasure.
Good luck, guys.
All right, everybody, I'm out. Thanks so much. It was fun.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right. Just in closing here, let's see. Obviously, a brilliant game, well played, well run. I think we see here a case of where the defenders had a brilliant defense, but the attackers had a slightly more brilliant attack, and that worked out in my favor. That was great. Um, yeah, I like the idea of turning this into a print and play kind of thing, or something that we can put in a bag and hand out. As LaFondiose said, it's not a big expense, and um, yeah, we can easily cobble something like this together. We have sources for pieces. And of course, in the digital realm on Discord, this is very easy to set up and execute because we have the tabletop simulator module. We can put a series of maps behind here. There's no other maps here, but sometimes if there are multiple maps, you can change the map out with a click. It's a whole different game right away. So this is pretty nice. So anyway, I want to thank you all for watching. I want to invite you all to join the International Kriegsspiel Society. You can find the link to our Discord on kriegsspiel.org. And you just go ahead and find that link and click it. If you have any issues, let us know. You can find us on Discord. Discord is where we organize and do most of our stuff. We also have a Facebook group, International Kriegsspiel Society, on Facebook, and you can reach us there as well. And of course, on our website, you can email us as needed. We are, of course, committed to kind of spreading Kriegsspiel all over. And we will do anything we can to help you get going in your local area, running games and creating your own systems of play and doing it the way you want to do it, but doing it in the proper Kriegsspiel format is all we care about, which is a double-blind umpired experience. And yeah, we are very happy to support you. So good luck out there, and we will see you on the next adventure. Goodbye for now.